Hey, and welcome guys. As you see here, I'm going to be working on this Star Wars Rogue One, the Rebel U-Wing fighter. Now this is a kind of build in place, simplistic model. You see kind of all the parts sitting here. But I want to do possibly use it in a diorama. I have a couple of these kits, so I want to start doing something with them. But first I want to build it up and trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I'm thinking I'll change it up. I want to light this. Now it comes with a one of these little battery packs that makes sounds, and it has a variety of sounds and has this little green light. I don't want to use that at all. I want to light the engines, maybe do an interior cockpit light. I don't want it to be green. However, one of the issues is that this part right here is actually used to, I think, secure the seats for your pilot and co-pilot, and I believe this is a visible part here. I think this whole section is a visible part, so I'll have to probably cut this into parts or cut this away. Of course, I'll remove the batteries before I do any of that, so I'll have to cut all that away to make it fit inside. Haven't really figured all that out yet, but that's my plan. I do want to light the engines. Now you get 4 of these parts here. I've already, there is some internal detailing. It's hard to see here, but really can't. I tried a micro drill to kind of see if I could drill it out, and it really wasn't working. So what I'm going to do is just drill all the way through. I've taken this one right here. Now it comes together, but once you drill it through, it separates these 2 parts. So I'll have to re-glue this cap. As you can see here, I've drilled through both parts here, and we'll just have that open, and we can easily put a LED light in there. Now this will run through this engine shroud, or the engine connection. I think this is the back part of it, so we'll have to run some wiring. This will be where it connects with the body. We'll have to figure all that out. I'm sure it'll be a little challenging running those engine lights, but I want to turn this simple build and play model into something nice. And as far as the paint scheme, I'm not really sure. Maybe the partisan type white and black would be kind of cool, a little bit different. I have seen it done before, but I think it'd be neat to incorporate into a diorama eventually. This video will mostly be on probably the build. Now you do have a couple parts here. Let's see if I can get that apart. I do have some raised lettering here of trademarks. Of course, we'll sand that away and get rid of that. Any other kind of marks. I'll look through these parts carefully and try to figure out what has to go. You have some detailing here that I believe is visible. You have some clear parts to the canopy. There's a lower section and upper section, and you have some doors. And that was another part, is in the actual kind of bay area of the ship. This kind of comes down like this, because it kind of blocks it. So maybe we can, once we modify all this, we can open this back up, and you do have doors, and maybe we can leave them open and then maybe have some figures or something. I haven't figured all, I'm not that far ahead, but I just want to kind of get this. I do want this to be open, get rid of all this, but we'll have to, sorry, didn't mean to do that. We will have to save this section. I'll probably just have to take my saw and sorry, keep pushing the button, and see how we can get that apart. So that's the plan here. First stages are just kind of getting all these parts opened up and figuring out how I'm going to do this. So we'll just get rolling with it. All right, so you can see I have a little bit of a mess here. I was able to separate the 2 sections of this interior piece as the lights and sound. This one light, you have one LED right here. There is a seam that if you cut with a saw, you can get a screwdriver and kind of pop some of the edges off there. So I was able to kind of get this piece off. I did, as you can see, I opened this up. It was like a little doorway in there. I opened it up. I don't think I'm going to be doing a full interior or anything. There's definitely room if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to recreate, actually install the door on that one. If you wanted to recreate the interior, maybe with the gunner hanging out the window with the gun as seen in Rogue One. You could definitely have space to do that. This will kind of glue into position here. This is your push button. I did glue that into position so it wouldn't move around. But this piece kind of goes in here and kind of gives the back of the detail. So you need that top part. And then you'll have your cockpit. There's a piece that goes on the cockpit that kind of goes right in here. And I'll be painting all this. I don't think this is really thin. I thought about maybe trying to light that console, but I think you just have to rebuild that whole part to get any lights pulled off in there. And I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I may add like an interior light back in here to kind of give the cockpit just a lit look to it. But as you can see here, I do have some wires coming out there where I think I figured out how I'm going to get the wiring through to light the engines. Now, as far as lighting the engines, you have this piece comes like this. It's actually two pieces, but they're already glued together. If you drill them out, that separates there. And you see where I've taken this is a 5mm blue LED. It's pre-wired with a resistor. I had to kind of sand it down. Well, I used a grinder and kind of grind off the edges, and also flatten the edge because it's rounded. That helps diffuse the light, and I want that flat edge look to it. I use a little bit larger drill bit to drill out the space to make sure that would fit in, and I'll have to glue that in. And as you can see here, I have it running through the engine and then out through here. I'm going to have to do a little bit of channeling to get through here and put it into this space here where I can connect all the wires. Now, how I did the hole, as you can see on this one, I've connected this part to it. It press fits into place, then did a pilot hole, and that's where my wire's just big enough. I'm sorry, right there. As you can see that hole going through there, not there, but right here. So you have to be kind of careful on this one. If you look closely, you can kind of see the hole, so I'll have to do a little bit of repair in there. Not a big deal. I'll probably just put a very thin piece of styrene in there, and it'll just look like added detail and won't be very noticeable. Now, as far as the wings, I'm going to have them in the closed position. I really don't like how it looks when it's open. It just it's very wide, and just something about it I just don't care for. I really just prefer the closed configuration. So what I'm going to be gluing these into place. It's not going to be able to open or anything. It's going to be glued into place. That's the way I like it, the way it flies around most of the time. I guess sometimes in combat it opens up, I guess, for better aerodynamics. I don't know. However, since I don't need these joints here, I may be cutting away some of that to get enough room to get my wires into here. Like I said, it's got to channel through this section. I think I may be able to cut some of this detail out and have some wiring, but there's going to be wiring coming from 4 engines. So I'll probably have, it's pretty thick right there, so I'll probably have to do a little bit of channeling there to get that into this area here where I'm going to be able to connect my wires. As you can see here, there's a panel. I'm going to take some styrene, close this up, close the speaker holes. I'll probably use some putty to seal those up and maybe add some detail onto it later. I don't think I'm going to build out the cockpit, or I'm sorry, cockpit will be visible, but I'm not going to build out the cargo area or the crew area. So I'll have the doors closed. Plus, I'm going to have some kind of supporting mount coming probably from here, so I'll need to make that sturdy. And so that's kind of where we're at with all that. These are the figures included. They're not too bad. They're bigger than 144, somewhere in between. I'll have to look up the scale, but I'm guessing somewhere like 1/100 scale figures in there, but they're not too bad. So I'll have to paint those up and figure out a little bit more. So that's where it's heading with that. I got to do all the wires for engines, get those run, figure out, I'm going to get these wings glued in position, and so I don't have to worry about those jiggling around or moving around, and I'll be able to channel out my areas for my wires. So just keep moving forward. All right, so again, just working on the lighting. So as you can see here, I've attached in this section of the ship. I went ahead and glued that into place so I can kind of see where I need to do my wiring at, and taking a Dremel with a grinding tool, and as you can see here, kind of channeled in some areas right in here. Now you do have a little bit of space on the bottom sides, but I've had a channel all the way through here so my engine lights can come kind of through that groove and then into here, and I can glue those down, and it should be enough to have clearance on. This is the top section, so I had to do the top section. On the bottom section of our ship, you can see where I've also channeled in right here, and this is where I was talking about the bottom. I had that mixed up. You have some play in here, some room right here because of this section right here. So you can see I went all the way through, but it's not going to show on this side because of this piece. And that should give me plenty of room for my wires to get in through there. I've went ahead and attached this gray section to the bottom of the ship. This battery compartment, I went ahead and first I put in a piece of styrene plastic in there to give it support, cover up these holes. I went and put this in because I had this space for the screw, and I drilled that out, and that will be where my wiring, my connecting support rod will go, and it's already fitted in there. It's just a snug fit. So I put this in there for extra support. It'll stick out a little bit, but it's the bottom of the ship, and I think once it's painted up, it's just going to look like a little bit of added detail. Thought about covering these up, but again, I think it's just going to look like added details on the bottom of the ship, and I don't think it's going to be too noticeable. Now, one thing that I'm planning on doing at this point is there is a clear plastic piece that goes right here. I think because of you don't see a whole lot, and because I want to do some wiring up in the front of the ship, I think I'm just going to paint the inside black and put that there. Again, it won't be noticeable. You won't miss much, but it will kind of free up some area for me to do some wiring and some lighting that I think would be a bigger payoff than to try to hide some of these wires through here. It's just not a lot of space with this canopy the way it is, and the way you just have open view to everything. So I'm going to just paint that section black. It'll still look like glass. It'll be on the bottom. Of course, the top part will still be clear. But that's going to kind of open up for me to do some lighting on this cockpit dash piece. You can see where I've drilled that out, and then took a filing stick and cleared out some of the detail in there. And my plan to light it is I took this piece of plastic. I forgot what this came from. You can see where I've cut it, and I've also drilled in a 3mm hole for a small light. And I'll just show you real quick, see if I can get that plugged in. I just have green, and I may use green. I'm going to have to play around the colors a little bit, but this will hold that in there. You can see it's quite bright. But then I can put this piece and attach it under here, and it will illuminate that dash. Now there's a lot of light blocking that has to happen, and so it's kind of looking like a big glow. Obviously, I will. The plan is to glue this clear piece into place, and then light block, paint it black, and then it will I think when I'm done, it will just look kind of extended part of the dash there. It won't be very noticeable. It kind of sits kind of right in here, so it won't be very noticeable, but the lighting will be noticeable. So that's the plan on lighting a little bit of the cockpit. I may do a little bit more. Depends on how much light that comes out through there. Again, I don't know if I'm going to do the green. Probably not. Probably go with some other color, maybe white, and then maybe try to paint in the lens. Because once I get this painted up, my plan is to put some UV resin, clear UV resin in there and seal it so it's flush with the rest of the instrument panel, and then light will still be able to transfer. So there are my plans of how I'm getting all this wired, or maybe a few other little wiring things. But I just want to stop before I get too far and show you where I was at. All right, I'm getting close to closing up the model. This is the bottom section, as you can tell. I've had the engines installed, the wiring's running through the channeling that I did for it. You may notice another light coming here. I did decide to add on a spotlight. As you can see here, I took a piece of brass tubing that would support a 3mm LED. I drilled a hole inside the ship right here with the drill. And while the drill, I first went in this way and then kind of tilted the drill as it was going, and that kind of made a oval shape to where our rod would be more straightforward, and the opening would kind of fit around it better. I've attached the canopy piece. As you can tell, I painted it black, as I talked about, because I want to have all this wiring stuff. I just don't want it to show through, and it's not really going to be visible. And I actually touched it while it was wet, and you can see where I'm getting it on the model, so I need to clean that up before I close anything off. So my support rod's there. I still need to put some epoxy around this rod. It's kind of super glued in at the moment to make sure that's supported well. I'll have to finish up my cockpit area and put my pilot and co-pilot in there. They're in the midst of being painted. I have to attach the light to the front of this, so I still have to do some attaching work, I should say, on the the cockpit area, and get that in there. I need to put the glass in there. I'll need to mask those off and stuff of that nature. But I'm going to be closing this up, and I just wanted you to give a glimpse of what it's looking like on the inside. Of course, I'll have to clean up all these wires, connect them all together, and run them down the power cord down our brass tubing there. But so far, I think it's looking pretty good. Should be pretty interesting with the lights and everything. So we're just going to keep moving forward with this. All right, I have my U-wing all assembled here. As you can see, I have the windows masked off. I checked all the lighting. All my lighting is working. I did have a little bit of issue when I was connecting. I had some gap issues with the wiring, and I was trying to cut away and actually sliced one of the wires. Had to carefully go in and solder those wires back together, but they're working now. So I also have some masking in my engines. Now, one part that I did add on are a couple of, I guess, improvements, you might say. Right here was a big gap, and you could kind of see some of the wiring come from the engine. So I took some styrene plastic and cut it in a couple of sections to kind of make this shape right here to seal that. You can still see in here, but this is you can't really see the wiring through there, and the wings are supposed to open and close. You know, it's sci-fi, so I'm not worried about closing this off. I think that it's a much cleaner, better look than what you saw without it. It was a tight fit getting all those wires, and I did have some gap issues right here. I've been sanding and filling that in, but I think it'll need more work. I need to put a coat primer and see exactly what's showing and what's not showing right now. But other than that, it went together pretty well. You have this big space in there because I decided to close that off. There is quite a bit of space in there where you can connect all your wires pretty easily along with the mounting pole. So from here, I'm going to put a primer coat and look at any issues, plus check the lighting. I don't think I have any light gaps, but we'll see if there's anything kind of shining through on that. But to just put the primer on and kind of see where it stands so we can get it ready for its base coat. All right, well, here's my primer coat on, getting ready to apply our base coat. Everything's looking pretty good. There was, as expected, some cleanup on this back part. Had a few little dimples where there was just some little gaps. But overall, I think it's looking pretty good, especially for this basic Revell kind of build and play kit. So from here, I'm going to be putting my base coat, and I think I'm going to go, I've used this many times, it's kind of my sci-fi go-to color, some deco art. It's a sand, it says sand gray, but it's actually kind of off-white with a little bit of a brownish or tannish color. It works very well for if you're looking for something not stark white, but still kind of that Star Wars white color that we often see. So anyway, I'll be thinning that down and applying it with an airbrush. It usually takes a few coats to get it to looking right, and we'll go from there as far as what pattern we're going to paint on this. All right, as you can see here, I have my base coat on, and very happy with how that turned out. And that kind of off-white, a little bit of a beigeish color going on. Now there's going to be a lot of weathering stuff. This is just our base coat and some detail painting. I first thought about doing the black and white. I think it's the partisan paint job. I think I'm going to go with the more rebellion color, blue and white, but not so much the one on Rogue One. Well, it is on Rogue One, but the one that kind of is in the when they attack Scarif has a slightly different paint job. So something along those lines. I'm not too worried about being movie accurate. This is going to be its own little U-wing. I'm imagining there's lots of U-wings and they probably have various paint jobs. So just something in the style of the blue and white paint job is what I'm leaning towards, maybe in a red squadron since they seem to be attached to their squadrons. Again, this was the Deco Art Sand Gray and thinned down with my own handmade thinner, which is water, and Jet Dry, which is a dishwasher fluid that helps the water to flow or loosen. It thins and helps the paint to thin down and flow better out your airbrush. But it went on very well. You do have to do light coats. You can't just do it too heavy. Do light coats, but after 3 or 4 passes, you get a nice buildup. As you can see here, it levels out nicely. It doesn't clog up your panel lines, which this model actually has really nice deep panel lines, so you're pretty good even with the thicker paints. The only thing is I kind of noticed is that, see if I can get down here, I don't know if it's showing, but there's some mold injection marks. I can kind of see right there. There's several of them throughout the bottom of the wings, and I just missed those. Fortunately, it's on the bottom. I'm not going to try to cover it up at this stage of the build. It's on the bottom. It won't be too noticeable. Once I got that paint on, let it dry, I did add a clear acrylic satin coat. I get these at Hobby Lobby. Now, I bought this one for $8, but the last time I went, they were $4.99, which is a pretty good deal. These work. You can get them in gloss, satin, and matte. They spray on very well. They work very well, and I like the acrylic coating especially when everything else I'm doing is in acrylics. So from here, I'm going to be masking off. Of course, I'm going to be painting this back bar of the engines like some type of grayish color. This section here, I believe this section is also kind of a grayish color. I'll figure that out as I'm painting, and we'll come back once I make some progress on that. All right, as you can see here, I'm starting to get most of the base colors on. I just masked off the areas, obviously, that you see here with some masking tape, and then with the airbrush, did some of this French blue from Model Layer from Vallejo. I then just hand brushed some of the surface gray primer, the engine nozzles, and the section here, the little gunmetal on the guns right there, and then I put another satin coat over all this to protect it. I did like do some masking, I guess, with some of this masking soil Neo from Mr. Hobby, just putting little dabs on it. I found a good way of pulling it off is just taking a piece of masking tape once the paint's dried, and the masking tape usually lifts the masking soil off without taking the paint off. I also did some scratches just with some like some blended instruments and some tweezers and stuff just to give a few more weathering marks there. And now we have a long way to go to make this start looking good. We need to do a lot of weathering, but I think I want to dig through my decal box and see if I can find anything interesting, since I'm not really trying to simulate anything on screen and just kind of doing my own paint job. I'm going to see if I can find any kind of interesting decals that may add a little bit more interest to our ship here. All right, I've added some, I had quite a bit of those self-adhesive decals that come in the Bandai kits, the X-Wings and stuff like that. So I was just going through those, and they actually go on pretty well. I think once you put a clear coat on them, they pretty much disappear. Not quite like decals, but I'm not too worried in this case. But you can see here where I've kind of did the some of the XY weapons striping that they give you. I think that kind of went well right there. And a few odds and ends just to give it some visual kind of interest as you look throughout the model. So from here, I want to start going into my weathering. And I'm going to first kind of do a pen wash. And this is some black oil paint mixed with mineral spirits. Now you might see that it's not, let's see if I can get a better look at that. It's not really mixed at the moment because it's been sitting, but all you have to do is shake it up. And then you'll have a nice thin wash. Again, this is just black oil paint mixed with odorless mineral spirits. Let's see if I can not make a mess while trying to do this. I like it because it's very thin, comes off very easily. See if we can start. Of course, I'm going to be getting all in this engine bay pretty well. And I have several colors of this that I've done like this using these extra paint jars mixed in several colors. So I have black, gray, I have some burnt umber, all the kind of things that you'll need to do your washes. It's very inexpensive to do it that way. Pretty much lasts forever. And once you get a big bottle of mineral spirits and then the different oil paints. And you can see just how it flows really nicely. If you need to go darker, you can just put a little bit more or let it set for a little bit. See if I can keep it in camera for you and actually see. It's always fun to watch that, was it the capillary effect, where it just kind of gets pulled into the rest of the seam or whatever it's being put in. So I'm just going to do that throughout the model using the different colors, and then we'll come back once we get that done. All right, as you can see here, I did my wash, and that changes, it tones down the white a little bit, starts giving that dirtier look. It collects all the panel lines and crevices, and just let that set there for a little bit, and then, excuse me, come in with a cloth or something, wipe off the excesses. Something's being a little stubborn, just put a little of the mineral spirits on a cloth, and you can wipe off the excess, which I had to do in several places. This was really dark, and I had to kind of lighten that back up. You can see where the panel lines and stuff are now showing, and we have it kind of in these crevices to give kind of these false shadows and that weathered, dirty look. I did add in some yellow. This was a yellow ochre wash, I believe, and kind of looks like a paint, but I think that turned out pretty good. And so, and after I did all that with the washes and stuff, I did a clear matte coat. It was acrylic matte coat that I put on to kind of lock in all of that work that we have done. A little bit of painting. I did the engine nozzles with a aluminum color, some kind of silver metal color. I forget which one. And that's been covered over too. A little bit of dry brushing here and there. So from here, I'm getting close to finishing. So I'm just going to start working on the final weathering process. And as always, I like to go to my dry pastels, my chalks, some of my kits. I got this makeup kit that I use quite a bit. These are really cheap. Get you lots of colors. That's the same thing basically. You can see here where I sand off, and I have some sanding paper stapled down in here, and I just take the chalks and grind them up in powders, then use an old paintbrush, and I got an assortment of different ones, and I'll start darkening those up. I know places that I really want to darken up is around these where this engine nozzle comes out of the engine. I want that kind of suited up, and also around the actual nozzles. I'll do some of the orange colors as some rust. I may do a little bit more of the oils just for streaking rust effects. But we're getting close to getting done, so I think I'm going to finish up, and we'll come back. We'll look at the finished model. All right, well, here's my finished Revell U-wing to kind of build and play model kit. Pretty simple, but we did repaint and we did some lighting, and eventually I want to put it in a diorama. However, probably won't be my next project. Still kind of planning out. I had some ideas, but I hadn't finalized. So before I start on it, I kind of want to think it out a little bit. So I may start on another project while I kind of give this a rest and kind of come up with what I want to do with it. But it's good to go. It's just temporarily mounted to this little dome that I have with the switch. It has a 9-volt battery in there to run the lights. But I finished up with my dry pastels, a little bit more of the oils and paints to give it those rust effects and whatnot. And pretty happy with how it came out. I think it'll be really good piece for a diorama. It's that beat up Star Warsy look that I enjoy building so much. And of course, I don't think I've ever seen anybody build one of these and actually do lighting. You know, this is a pretty basic kit. I have built the Bandai version, which is much smaller. It's 1/44 scale, I believe. That would be really difficult to light. Not impossible, but you probably have to get into some smaller LEDs and wiring to get that stuff done. This one is not terribly hard to light, so I'm just going to turn this on real quick, and you can see our lights. I think they came out great. Nice. I always love lights and sci-fi models, brings them to life. Got our 4 3mm LEDs, which fit in there without too much problem, and terribly hard to get some wiring in. And of course, you remember I did some scratch building to cover up those gaps in there. See if I can get that into focus for you. And I think that looks pretty good that way. It doesn't, you don't look in and see the wires, and this kind of looks like a natural part of this ship. Of course, we have our cockpit lighting. We got our instrument panel all lit up in the green lights. And there is a red LED kind of giving some ambient light in the back of the cockpit. I know it's kind of hard to see through that glass. It's really thick, but there are some painted figures in there, and they're good to go. And so it turned out pretty good. Again, I think it's going to be really good for a diorama piece. As a standalone model, you know, it kind of is what it is. It's not too bad. I don't think it's bad at all, really. You know, but it is one of those build and play models. It's pretty simple to build. But I enjoyed it. It was a fun build, especially doing all the lighting and stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Eventually this will be in a diorama. I just need to think about it a little bit more. I'll probably go into another project that I've been wanting to kind of do. And until next time, everybody have a good one.